Tonight, for the very first time, you're going to hear from a juror who helped convict Katie Magbanua in her second trial. She is the woman that prosecutors say connected the Adelsons to the hitmen who murdered Dan Markel. So what convinced the jury? What really happened inside that deliberation room? And what does all of this mean, if anything, for the rest of the Adelsons?
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor. Here's your host, Emmy award-winning journalist, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. This is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. Tonight, we're diving straight back into the case, our OG case, and that is the Dan Markel murder for hire plot taken from us way too soon back on technically July 19th, even though the shooting was July 18th of 2014. And tonight you're going to get a rare perspective into one of the other trials, the second Katie Magbanua trial. We have a juror who sat through every minute of that. This is a case that finally convicted the alleged middle woman, again, linking the Adelsons to the hit team that, in fact, executed Dan Markel in his driveway in the most horrific of ways. Here to help bring this to you all is the man who helped bring the juror to us, the famed Tallahassee criminal defense attorney, the letter R, the word O-U-R, Timothy Jansen. Tim Jansen, it's been a minute. I don't like not seeing you for this long. We're going to introduce Will in just a second. Before we do, you're a pit bull attorney. You get things done, and from what I understand, you've been telling Will, come on, STS for the better part of three years, which is how long we've existed, and finally you got him to do it. We're going to ask him how, but how did you do it? How did you work your magic, Tim?
Well, you know, he's a good friend, known him for a long time. And he just wanted to make sure he didn't say anything or do anything that would jeopardize future trials or other trials. So he was reluctant, and I convinced him what a great audience you have. It's going to be great questions. And it's important information that maybe the public should hear from him being sitting in that jury, what he thought, what he looked at, what he saw, how he reacted. I thought it would be good.
Yeah. So obviously we've got Tim here, and then in this second trial, everything from the enhanced Dolce Vita recording to the money trail to Katie Magbanua's testimony, which a lot of people thought did her in. We're going to get into all of it and find out what this man, Will Spilius, thought. He is here. Will, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Before we get into this, if you'll just indulge me for one moment. It is the 3-year, I don't like to use the word anniversary, 3 years since the murders at the University of Idaho. Of course, you got Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and her boyfriend at the time, Ethan Chapin, taken from us way too soon. And today, of all days, the judge basically told the man who committed this crime, whose name I'd rather not repeat, told him, hey, you owe restitution. I was speaking to Kevin Fixler with Idaho Statesman. He's actually up in Moscow for this, and at the memorial garden that they built. He just sent me some photos. Here's a photo from Kevin Fixler right here. Very, very cool, neat looking memorial garden, but we should all take some time, and I'm going to try to put a video out after this show tonight. It's hard to believe it's been 3 years. The killer will spend the rest of his life rotting behind bars, as he should, and now he has to pay up. It's incredible to me. Tim Jansen, I just don't understand this ever. His commissary has 5 figures in it. Fix from the Idaho Statesman did some work and found out that good portion of that money is from his family, but there's also definitely proceeds coming in from quote unquote fans of the convicted killer. It boggles my mind. Does it boggle your mind, Tim Jansen?
It's not surprising. I mean, Ted Bundy got married while he was in prison. he had a court date, and somehow he arranged to get married while he was in a court date. People, for some reason, people are attracted to. I mean, we all know the hot girls that go after the bad guys in the band. Now we see where these people go after these killers, criminals. It's just amazing. I don't know what the attraction is, but they do, and notoriety,
Unbelievable. Well, please keep the good people of Idaho and the surrounding area in your thoughts this evening. 3 years since those killings at the University of Idaho. Now on to Katie Magbanua. So she was first tried jointly with Sigfredo Garcia. That was a mistrial. Sigfredo was convicted. That happened in 2019. Then in 2022, Katie Magbanua takes the stage for a second time, this time with enhanced Dolce Vita recordings. The jury ends up deliberating for like 7 to 8 hours. A unanimous guilty verdict, first-degree murder, conspiracy, solicitation, the same charges we have seen with both Charlie and Donna. Sentenced to life. Life in Florida is life, no parole, plus 30 years. Will, to you, thank you for being here. We're going to get into Tim's baseball habits as well. But first, I guess why now? Other than Tim badgering you, why do you feel okay now speaking about your experience on this jury panel for Katie Magbanua's second trial?
Yeah, Tim hit on it a little bit. Interesting journey, how I got on the jury. Tim was actually called for the same jury. We ran into each other in the hallway, and we both figured we'd be back at our offices within a couple hours, right? Because we're both attorneys, and attorneys really don't get on juries. And then after the trial, I don't even think Tim realized that I had gotten picked. I kind of went into total lockdown and shutdown in terms of communicating with any of my buddies or whatever. And I think it's a funny story how Tim realized I was on the jury. He can tell that. But after the trial,
Will, I'm sorry. I just want to stop you right there because, you mentioned it, and it may have passed some people by. But like Tim Jansen, you are an attorney, and I thought almost for sure that attorneys and people like myself who've been in media for a lot of years are going to get turned away because maybe they're going to think you're prejudiced. Were you surprised being an attorney that you were actually chosen?
Surprise is an understatement. Not many things. I don't get too high. I don't get too low on things. When I was called as a juror, the way voir dire went, me being an attorney was probably when all was said and done, the least strange thing about how I got on the jury. I've got a law enforcement background. I was the police general counsel for 2 municipalities in South Florida. I worked for the Attorney General's office doing criminal appeals. So I figured that would get me stricken. And then, quite frankly, and all this came out in voir dire, I was personal friends with 2 of the primary witnesses in the case. And so I figured that would get me stricken, and it didn't.
Can I ask you, are the 2 friends Chris Corbett and Pat Sanford? Or are you allowed to tell us?
So like I explained in voir dire, Pat Sanford was a baseball, and I guess kind of still is a baseball rival of mine. We played in the same old man's baseball league since 2008, and that's where I met Tim. I became teammates with him when I joined this old man's baseball league. Pat was a rival. He struck me out for the better part of 4 or 5 years. And then I was able to figure him out. But I described him as a baseball buddy. Pat's not someone I ever socialized with really outside the baseball field. Rivals, at one point teammates on a tournament team for a couple of years, but a baseball buddy nonetheless. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears on the field, and then after the game, just hang out, shoot the breeze regarding the game and whatever else is going on baseball wise. But the other individual I was, what I would consider a much closer friend was John Sawicki. So I figured with those personal relationships, there's no way I would get called on the jury.
John Sawicki, one of the nicest guys you will ever meet, and he certainly has the largest calf muscles I've ever seen on a human being.
And probably the toughest amateur baseball player that I know.
Really? So let's get this out of the way. I'm going to get hate mail right now, but we got to take a 3-second detour into baseball. How is Tim Jansen at baseball? Does he hate to lose? What's people love Tim here. Is he as good at baseball as he is on camera? That is the question.
Well, I'll tell you, he is. Mild-mannered Tim, right? But on a baseball field, there's a number of us who I think take it too seriously in terms of trying to do our best. We don't take it seriously in terms of, getting into fights well, there may be a couple, but, Tim's one of those guys where he's a great ambassador for the game and everything. But when he's on the field, to his own detriment, I think he goes too hard. Stealing bases in his late 50s, sliding. He's pretty intense.
I'll tell you, going back probably to the late 90s, my friend Mike, shout out to Mike, he knows who he is in New Jersey, just forces me into his dad's company's softball league. I tried sliding into second. I was probably 30 feet from first when I cracked my elbow in the dirt. And after that, I was done. I turned a sheet of white. I was rolling over in the dirt. Everyone thought it was ridiculous. There was no contact, nothing. People are like, this guy's making it up. I had to literally one arm drive myself to the nearest ER, had a fractured elbow, never touched a softball again. But Tim is obviously much tougher than myself. The hate mail is going to roll in because everyone wants to hear about the jurors. But I got to get back to Sawicki, I imagine, is hitting just Vlad Guerrero Jr. bombs over the fence and out of the field. Is this true?
So you would think so, right? But he's more of a contact hitter.
Yeah.
Really?
I did play third base, by the way. The person asked.
Tim, did you play baseball like in high school and stuff?
Not in high. No, I worked in high school. I put myself through school, but I did play baseball, and I love baseball. I'm from St. Louis. You grew up. Baseball is the #1 sport in St. Louis.
Will, if you have photos and or video, this might even been pre-video, please send them to me. I'm going to give you my email. I'm going to post these on Instagram. Everyone, do you guys wear like real uniforms with like the stirrup socks and stuff? Does Tim look like the guy from A League of Their Own? Like Tom Hanks in A League of Their Own?
It's wood bat, metal cleats. Some guys wear the knee highs, some guys wear the stirrups, some guys wear the long pants. It's personal preference,
Well, if you have any photos of Tim again or video, even of Sawicki, I would love to see it. Sawicki again, one of the nicest guys. I think he gets embarrassed when I say.
I may have something for you. Yeah,
please. John Sawicki's calves are bigger than my head. That's all I have to say. Tim Jansen. So back to business here. Now Will teased a couple times that he defying all odds, he's chosen for this. This is the juror, Harley. You've got the juror right here. Will Spilius is the juror. Do you remember your juror number, Will? Because it goes back a few years.
Yeah, there's a story behind that. My juror number was 11.
Okay. So, Tim, tell us the story of how Will gets chosen on Katie Magbanua's second jury trial. I'm curious why he's telling Tim. Well, he's saying Tim will tell the story because Will's the guy with the goods. But, Tim, why does he get picked?
Well, it's pretty interesting, because we were in the jury voir dire. First, we were in the big room, and we got in there. And then what they did was that you walked into the private area where the lawyers and the judges were, and they asked you questions about prejudice, can you serve, and all the media and stuff. And then after a while, you could see some people were just leaving, and others had to check with the clerk what time to be back. So you knew who was coming back. And so Will comes out and he's like trying to be coy about it, didn't say anything. And I just happened to overhear he went to the clerk and they said, be back. So I knew he was coming back. And then I went back in there. And then, of course, I disclosed I played baseball with Pat. And I told him, they said, oh, you're good friends. And I said, no. And Will can tell you, he used to hit me when I was in the batter's box. He always would hit me. And if I got on second, he'd try to pick me off and he'd try to hit me.
How fast do they pitch? How fast do they pitch?
He could throw it. He could throw a fastball, but he had no other pitches. So if you could time his fastball, you could hit him. Some of the pitches we had all kinds of junk, and they really make you look bad.
Wow.
Pat really didn't have many pitches, maybe a curveball, but mostly he threw a fastball. And if you timed it, you could hit him. And I was shocked, and it's pretty funny when I saw Will, and I said, he's not going to get picked. And I walked into court one day, and I saw him sitting in the jury. And I'm like, and I don't know how long it took for him to look at me, but he was trying not to look at me. And I'm like, shit, that's Will. He's in the jury box. And then Will tell you a funny story about how when Pat Sanford finally saw him sitting in the jury.
Wow.
And that was kind of surreal how he described it.
We're going to get into all this. I don't want to bring myself into this, but I was a fantastic pitcher. So was my dad. My superpower was that I was so slow that no one could time me. And I pitched a no-hitter on McKinney Oil, probably 1981. The diameter of my bicep was probably 1.5 inches, but I could throw, man, with a very incredible accuracy and zero speed. You guys know I'm a news junkie. You're news junkies if you're following true crime. Check this out. Anyone who watches Surviving the Survivor knows that I've got some serious problems, and among them is the fact that I'm an absolute news junkie. From the moment I wake up until I go to bed, I am scouring the internet and social media for stories and why they're making headlines. But now I've discovered Ground News. It is an app that has completely changed my life, and that's because everything is centrally located here, so it eliminates sensory overload. No more information overload. And it also eliminates sensationalism because here you find out who the sources are behind the stories. Also, say goodbye to those manipulative algorithms and not knowing what to trust. You all know I've been doing some stories on David, the singer linked to Celeste Rivas. Well, you can go here, plug in David. It'll pull up all the stories on it, all the various media outlets. It'll tell you which way they lean. It gives you all the information about the sources themselves. And another great feature is that there are no ads. It's all subscriber based. So subscribe to get 40% off the Vantage plan by scanning this QR code or using my link, groundnews.com/survivor. And here they come. Stop talking about baseball. Okay, we're all Katie now. Everyone relax. Don't send me hate mail. We're 18 minutes in. We're going to get to the juice here. So Will, do you, despite knowing Sawicki and the FBI agent Pat Sanford, why do you think you were chosen? Let's start there.
Yeah, so interesting. I've thought about that. I thought about it a lot after the trial, and when I would tell my family, relay everything that went down and close friends and everything, and it was still, even now thinking about it, it's kind of surreal. I think, when I raised my hand, they go down through the witness list. And so I knew because I was in the second group and Tim was in the third group. So when the first group was going and getting voir dire, they went down the witness list. Kappelman went down the state's list and DeCoste went down the defense list. And quite frankly, I had not really followed the 2019 trial. I had really not paid attention to any of this in the news or anything. So I truly was kind of coming in cold. And when Sanford's name was called, the first thing I thought in my head is, okay, if I get up there and raise my hand, I'll be knocked off, the jury at some point with a peremptory challenge. And then when Sawicki's name was called, that solidified that thought process for me. And so then when our group went up and questions were asked, I was asked how I knew Pat Sanford, and so I told him the whole baseball buddy thing and everything. And I was asked if I thought, if I got chosen as a juror, if I could put that friendship, so to speak, aside and view Sanford's testimony impartially without bias? And I said, yes, I could. When I was asked about Sawicki by the defense folks, it was interesting. I remember this, the day, like it was yesterday. I was asked if I could put Sawicki's, my friendship with him aside and view his testimony impartially. And I said, I believe I can, as opposed to a quick yes. So then DeCoste went and questioned some other juries. He came back to me and he goes, Mr. Spilius, I need a straight answer from you. You said you believe you could put your friendship with Mr. Sawicki aside. I need a straight answer, yes or no. I guess I went into lawyer speak, right? So what I did, instead of giving a quick yes or no, I relayed that, when I've worked for elected officials, Republicans, Democrats, I've worked for the judiciary. Like I mentioned earlier, I've done a lot. And I've got my own political, personal, philosophical beliefs, but when I walk out my front door, I leave those aside if my job is to provide legal counsel and guidance to my client, which it has been for 30 years. So I may have the law may align on a certain issue with my beliefs. The law may not align, but I don't bring those beliefs into the legal counsel and guidance I'm giving my clients. And so then I relayed that, and then I said, so if I'm chosen as a juror, which in my mind I'm thinking not going to happen, yes, I'll view Mr. Sawicki, John's testimony without bias and with impartiality, and I won't let friendship get in the way. I'll follow the judge's instructions, the jury instructions, and do my job as a juror. I gotta believe, and I don't know, that the defense did not strike me. Perhaps they felt that based on my answer or whatever, that if they could sow reasonable doubt in my mind, that maybe I could bring others over to having reasonable doubt. I don't know. To this day, like I said, it still kind of blows me away. But, as it turns out, when all was said and done, I was probably one of the better jurors for the defense.
Interesting.
But,
yeah,
for sure.
There's a question here from Annie
sure.
K. Then we're getting back to Tim in a second. Have you watched the other trials, specifically Charlie and Donna? What do you think about Katie not taking a plea deal? What are your predictions? There's like 4 questions in here. Let's start with the other Adelson trials. Once you served, did you get more interested? Did you watch these trials?
I didn't watch any of it. I didn't follow any of them. Quite frankly, to tell you the truth, I've never been like a true crime guy, because I lived that world when I did criminal appeals for the Attorney General's office, when I was counsel for, City of Boca Raton, City of West Palm. So to follow true crime and all that, I did that. And so, no, I didn't, because I lived it for 2 weeks. I knew what the evidence pretty much was going to be. I felt I knew what the outcomes were going to be and what they should be. So I'd have family members, I'd have friends. Tim would text me about, hey, the trial's coming up. And I just kind of went on with my life. And I'm not surprised by how they turned out. I believe those were the right verdicts. Well,
good for Will. It appears you have a life, unlike me. So congrats to you. Tim Jansen, why on earth would the defense take a risk? You're a criminal defense attorney. Would you ever allow a smart attorney, and there are non-smart attorneys, Will's obviously a very intelligent attorney, would you ever allow him without striking him to be on a jury panel? Well,
it's interesting because Will is correct. A good, smart lawyer who is really independent could sway jurors. And if the lawyers were concerned about publicity and the mob mentality, they would want someone like Will or Jimmy Stewart, 12 Angry Men. After I got cut, I ran into Tara Kawas, and we bumped into each other. And she said, "We didn't cut you. We like lawyers on the jury."
Wow.
So I think the prosecution got me thinking that I was pro-defense. but they said they like lawyers on the jury. And I've had cases where lawyers are good. I've had lawyers where I didn't want them on, but it depends on the case.
Wow, we have so much to get to, so I hope Will has some time tonight. Tim, you too. Never give up. By the way, I saw Jameis Winston's going to be starting this week. Not to digress yet again, but
My former client.
yeah, your former client. How did being a lawyer, Will, make it easier or harder to be a juror? Interesting question. What witness or evidence was the most convincing? Now, this question is getting a little ahead because I was going to get to that, but feel free. I mean, how did being a lawyer help you? It was a panel of 12, I assume, with how many alternates?
Yeah, it was 12 and then 2. I mean, we didn't know who the alternates were, but so 14 and then 2 were alternates, and they didn't deliberate. But that's kind of a hard question. How does being a lawyer? I mean, whenever there's a case that makes news, and it could be political corruption, it could be whatever. I am someone that always, again, you can't help human nature maybe to jump to a conclusion, but I always am like, okay, we got to see what the facts are. What are the facts? Let's deal with the facts on the table. And so, I got to tell you, this was probably the most, and I've said this to people in my circle and everything, it was the most intense emotional experience of my life, besides, the emergency C-section of my child, right? So it was emotionally draining. It was intellectually draining because, yeah, I've been a lawyer for 30 years, right? But you kind of have your way of work, and you know how your brain works. Getting up in the morning, kind of what you need to do and everything. Some days are easier than others, right? After being called on the jury and realizing you've got someone's freedom in your hands, and it's going to be your decision, whether this individual is going to be able to take her young kids to the park, go get ice cream, watch them grow, or be in a small cell for the rest of her life. It's pretty weighty, and and so I thought I owed it to her, to the Markels, to Dan, to everyone involved with the trial, that I'm gonna hone in on every word that's uttered, every piece of testimony, and I'm a little hard of hearing, right? So I wear hearing aids, and so my other senses, I found myself watching body twitches and body language, and the prosecutors and the defense attorneys, their mouths as they're asking the questions and turning over to the witnesses. And so I don't know whether it was as much being a lawyer or just being cognizant of the weight of everything. A first-degree murder trial that, quite frankly, I had no inkling that I could even possibly be serving on, based on my background, based on my relationships with a couple of the witnesses. So that also kind of added on to everything. The great responsibility that I felt. So,
Tim, I mean, to Will's point, I don't think people realize, you do, because you're in a courtroom and you're representing these people. I have some sort of iota of understanding because I've been in these courtrooms, but the heaviness, like Will said, the weight that you carry as a juror, deciding literally if someone is going to spend the rest of their life, particularly on a murder one case. I mean, that's an incredibly heavy burden to carry, especially if you get it wrong.
I will tell you that I find that jurors always try to do the right thing. It doesn't matter if it's a DUI case, sexual battery case. Those jurors really want to get it right. And I think even though when I tried to pull the wool over some jurors and I thought I did a pretty good job, I think they actually got it right in the end. And then when I had really good cases that deserved the acquittal and got it, it made me believe in the system. I don't think people go in there with an idea that this is a game. I think Will probably is right. he went overboard to prove he was being objective, because he was still surprised he was on the jury, and he knew these two witnesses, that he didn't want to be seen giving balls to Sanford and to Zawicki. So I think he was the epitome of a fair jury. He had a little knowledge that probably helped the jury. I'm curious to know what his thoughts were on the testimony of Chris Corbett and the testimony of Luis Rivera, right? Because they had Luis Rivera was the least educated one, but I think he came across as the most credible.
Yeah, well, let's get there. So, I mean, Will, to that point, number one, did you find that you were able to overcome these friendships, specifically with Sanford and Zawicki? And which of the witnesses, when I interviewed these three most recent jurors, they all said that Chris Corbett's testimony to them was the most important.
Okay. So regarding Sanford, let me just correct Tim a little bit. Sanford has a nasty slider, and like I said, for the better part of 4 or 5 years,
he didn't throw it to me.
For the better part of 4 or 5 years, when he had 2 strikes on me, I knew that slider was coming, and I couldn't stay away from it. I would swing and miss. So if there was any bias regarding Sanford, it was against him, because of the misery he put me in until I started to figure him out and then own him. Just kidding. Tim's right to a point. I mean, I don't know if I, was trying extra hard to show that I wasn't biased one way or the other. Hey, you know what? At the end of the day, Pat was an FBI agent, and he was the lead agent on there. And I was just going to look at his testimony as, just like everyone else's, and weigh it. That's what I'm sworn to do as a member of the jury. And any witness, every witness, I was giving a lot of credence to, in terms of, okay, like I said earlier, I owe it to everyone involved in this to focus in and hone in. And just to make the point, I actually thought after I got called on the jury, that I'd be able to go home and do some of my real job work that evening, so as to not get too far behind. After that first day, I realized that's impossible, because I can't get this out of my head, and, things started changing just a little, kind of corny ways in my life as the trial was progressing. I'm someone that, I like country music, I like 80s alternative, I like U2, but I found myself, I need more. And then so I went into more of the heavy rock listening, in the evening when I was walking my dog, because I was like still wired, and thank God I can sleep through hurricanes, I can sleep through tornadoes. So I was able to sleep fine. But once I got up in the morning, even driving in, even going and getting my coffee and whatever, I got into that mode. I got into that, okay, I've got a job to do, I've got a duty, and, and I've got to get at it, and this is probably one of the most serious, important things I'm going to do in my entire life, including my legal career.
Yeah. By the way, everyone, please weigh in. Carm is chomping at the bit. Had to negotiate. I got her down from $450 million over 3 years to $325 million for her STS contract. She finally caved at $325 million. She always demands like 12-hour or more notice on what story she's going to cover. So tomorrow, I will give you 2 choices. We can pull sound from Will and talk about this Katie Magbanua juror, or we can discuss what in the world is going on with Ashley Buzzard, the mother of missing 9-year-old Melody Buzzard. Let us know. You can do it in the chat, or you can email me at survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. There was a question, and Tim, feel free to bounce in here with me, but there's a question if you have formed, and it sounds like you haven't, even after the fact, that you haven't been paying much attention to this, which is, kudos to you. Tim and I always say, like, you go to Tallahassee and a lot of people are not paying attention to this because there's always talk about venue changes. But did you form an opinion either then or now on who the mastermind of this crime was or is?
So my opinion of who the mastermind was, when our trial ended and had time to reflect, and maybe I didn't need a lot of time to reflect. Maybe I knew it right away, but you kind of, I went to the beach a couple weekends in a row just to kind of decompress and all that, thought about it. I always thought the mastermind was Donna. I think Charlie was the tool,
literally and figuratively. Yeah.
That's just my opinion. Yeah. I thought it was Donna based on everything I saw in the trial and heard.
So Tim, I don't, the 12 billion times you and I have talked, I don't even think I knew that you were in the running for Katie Magbanua's second trial. I mean, How far down the road did you make it? Do you get jury summons often in Tallahassee, Tim?
You do. I made it to the back room, and then I was excused, which I fully expected. I mean, especially after I told them that the judge was my little brother in my fraternity. And then the judge goes, "Wait a minute, Mr. Jansen, I've never given." I said, "No, Judge, I'm just wanting everybody to know. So it comes out later. You're my little brother in my fraternity." So I fully expected to get kicked off.
And that's Tim, what is the difference between Judge Robert Wheeler, who presided over that trial, and Judge Stephen Everett, other than that Wheeler was your little brother in your fraternity, as you just said?
It's a little different style. It's hard to say. I think both were really good judges. I think both were really fair. I think both made the proper rulings. We've all become accustomed to Judge Everett now because he handled the last couple trials, but Wheeler jumped in real quickly and took over, and I thought he did a good job trying the case. I think he tried Charlie's, right?
Yeah. No, that was Everett.
No, he tried Katie's. He tried Katie's.
Yeah, he tried.
And I thought he did a really good job. And I think Will can explain how did he think Judge Wheeler did?
Will, how do you think Judge Wheeler did?
I thought he was excellent. I thought he was clear, concise. He had control of the courtroom, the attorneys. His instructions were excellent. There was nothing I had thought in my mind negative about Judge Wheeler. Yeah. I thought he was excellent.
So let's pedal back.
Joel, on this question, I want to jump in here because after the trial, I tried to get Will to talk about it. He wouldn't talk about it. The
question has to do with Katie's demeanor.
Yeah. And I said, "Well, what do you think about Katie?" And the only thing he told me, he said, she didn't do any favors by taking the stand.
Well, that's what most people said. I mean, so let's get there. But first, Will, when Katie, again, you say you still don't know much about the case, but when Katie Magbanua first comes out prior to testifying, do you remember kind of your initial impressions? What you thought at first?
When she first came out after I had been called as a juror, or
when you see opening statements and you see her for really the first time, I guess you see her at part of the voir dire. Maybe, I'm not sure, but just your initial impression is what I'm getting at.
The initial impressions are there's a sad figure there because she's being tried for first-degree murder, without prejudging guilt, giving her the benefit of the doubt, giving her the presumption of innocence, still a sad figure because you're sitting in a courtroom with the machinery of the state and the prosecution coming at you because they feel they have enough evidence to get a conviction beyond reasonable doubt. And again, your life is hanging in the balance. So that's a sad state of affairs, right? So that's the first thought. Regarding her testimony and testifying, that's a whole different story.
We'll get there in just one second. I'm just curious, at what point did you know or find out that a plea deal was turned down in this case? Was that way after the fact?
I never knew it.
Yeah, that's not admissible. That was
Uh-huh.
never, jurors were never told that.
But did you find this out? I mean, somewhat quickly after this verdict came down, or was it still a while before you knew that?
After the verdict, when there's stuff in the news or comments on whatever, newspaper articles, and then people commenting or whatever, I think there were comments about she turned a deal down, but just from kind of knowing how things work, and then after rendering the verdict, in my mind, I was thinking, why did she never cut a deal? Why did she never
Exactly.
And what now, in hindsight, it's, of all the people involved in this case, you have to shake your head thinking this woman could be out right now, but for taking this deal. Do you, I don't want to say point the finger, but do you put the onus on anyone for that? Her attorney, someone else, her, I don't know. I mean, she literally could be a free woman, instead is spending the rest of her life in prison.
Tim probably can answer that better in terms of the experience he has advising his clients. But at the end of the day, she's the boss. I mean, she makes a decision as to whether she's going to testify or not, whether she's going to take a deal or not. The personal responsibility, accountability rests with her. Without knowing what the advice was from her attorneys and not having that inside knowledge, she made the decision. I think she gambled wrong.
Tim, who's
I think
to blame
right,
for that?
Joel, I think that's really unfair to ask Will that, but it's right. We don't know what the attorney told her. We don't know what she told her attorney. I've had clients that said, I'm not taking a deal. The old Lincoln Lawyer, if you ever saw that movie, I'm not taking a lawyer, I'm going to trial. And they will stand firm in that. Then you have others that say, I'm not going to take a deal. And then I get them a misdemeanor and they're like, where do I sign up? But clearly she was offered immunity. And Monica will tell you, we would be there with her hand, forcing her to sign that thing. You have to have some client control. You have to protect your clients from themselves, because what she was told and how she decided to turn down immunity, that's a puzzling question.
Will, as far as we're going to get into Katie's performance, but as far as the performance, let's start with the defense. You've got Tara Kawas, Krista Kos. What did you think overall of the defense performance in this case?
So I think I've told Tim this before. I know I've told some other folks, so I guess this is where the attorney aspect can come in. And Tim kind of touched on it when he said he had a good case. The weird thing about this case, as I reflected back on it, was, there are cases that I feel are probably easy for the prosecution to prosecute, and thus difficult for the defense attorney like Tim to defend. And then there's cases that are a little more difficult, for the prosecution to prosecute. Maybe it's primarily circumstantial evidence, and where the defense has a real good chance, it's easier, so to speak, to defend that case and try to sow reasonable doubt. The weird thing about this case, when it was all said and done, I felt that it was a tough case to prosecute, but also a tough case to defend. So overall, I thought, the defense attorneys did fine. However, huge mistake for Magbanua to testify.
And we're going to get to that. I was annoying the COE to get some, as we say in the news business, some sound from the second trial. We have it, and I almost forgot to play it. So now, if I don't play it, I'll be in the doghouse. I'm going to play a clip here. I believe this is from openings here. Let's take a look together. Oh, that's a picture. Let's watch this. That is from opening statements, though. Here we go.
It appears to be in proper form. I will now read the verdict.
Verdict coming in.
In the case of the state of Florida versus Catherine D. Magbanua.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. I mean, Will, you guys deliberated something like 7 to 8 hours. I don't know. Have you watched this since then?
No.
No. What kind of feelings does this evoke, years after? It's not 3 years after, basically.
Heavy still. Yeah. I mean, now that you're kind of putting it right in front of my face.
Sorry. You can blame the COE. She's the one that Tim, sorry guys. Tim, when you're, doing your criminal defense work and it gets time to read the verdict, do you have the same feeling every time? What is that feeling?
It's a very nervous feeling, and I'm not even the defendant. It's a tough feeling because you're always thinking what you could have said. You're watching the jury come in. Are they looking at you? Are they looking down? All those, things that they say to look for. Sometimes the jurors will look right at you and you're like, okay, you think you got a verdict. But it's nerve-wracking. And because you're the one sitting in that captain's chair and that person's life was in your responsibility. And sometimes you can't do anything. You do your best, but you always feel like you could do more. And so it's hard, very stressful. But you know what? When the juries come up with the verdict, I can't say that I've ever had a verdict, maybe one time that I thought the jurors got it wrong. I mean, they just got it wrong. Yeah. But most times they get it right.
Yeah. Well, this is the moment right here. I'm going to play it out now. And you know what? It's I guess, for lack of a more articulate way to say it, a really good feeling to know that Will still feels this way, because it shows how seriously he took his civic duty as a juror here, that he's still nervous after knowing the verdict to watch it all over again. He realized the heaviness of the moment. You see when Judge Wheeler starts speaking, Katie Magbanua takes a real deep breath here, and here's the moment of truth right here.
I will now read the verdict. In the case of the state of Florida versus Catherine D. Magbanua, case number 2016 CF 3036 and 2018 CF 497. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 1. A, the defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 2. A, the defendant is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 3. A, the defendant is guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. And it is signed and dated by the foreperson. Does either party wish to have the jury polled?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I'm going to poll the jury, which means I'm going to go through each of you and ask if this is your true verdict and answer the court yes or no. I will use your numbers that I have for each of you.
This is where the lawyers realize they made a mistake not taking the plea deal.
And I start with juror number 1. Juror number 1, is this your true verdict? Juror number 2, is this your true verdict? Yes. Juror number 3, is this your true verdict? Juror number 4, is this your true verdict? Yes. Juror number 5, is this your true verdict? Yes. Juror number 6, is this your true verdict? Yes. Juror number 7, is this your true verdict? Juror number 8, is this your true verdict? Yes. Juror number 9, is this your true verdict? Juror number 10, is this your true verdict? Juror number 11, is this your true verdict? Juror number 12, is this your true verdict? Members of the jury, I want to thank you for your time and consideration of this difficult case. You have put in 2 long weeks of hard work.
And that's the sound bite, the chunk. Will, I'm sure in the moment, obviously you can't take everything. It's like being at a baseball game. You're distracted by everything in the stadium. It's hard, much better to watch on TV. Now that you're watching and you're seeing her emote, sort of hyperventilating in disbelief, again, what is your reaction to watching that?
It brings back a flood of memories of it. Felt like I was there live right then and there, just I remember it clearly. It's something that never leaves you, probably for a good year afterwards. I thought about it every day. Now it's not like that, but just sitting there and, I don't think at some point I turned away. I just couldn't sit in there in a jury box. I just couldn't look anymore. Again, it's tragic. It's justice was served, but so many lives destroyed, and the tale of that, still lives destroyed.
Was there one sort of pivotal moment in the trial where you said this woman is guilty in your head, or was it a cumulative sort of response to all the evidence?
Yeah, I made the comment earlier that at the end of the day, I was probably one of the better jurors for the defense. Not getting into anyone else, just talking about me here. It took me about 4.5 hours of the 7.5 to maybe close to 5 to get to, all right, I've got no reasonable doubt. There is no reasonable doubt. And, did I think she was guilty when I walked out of the jury box? Based on the weight of the evidence and what I had just seen, I thought there was a good chance, but I felt like we had to go through the evidence. We had to hit the key parts, and I wasn't one of those that is going to come out and say, hey, I've got no reasonable doubt. Like I said, it wasn't the easiest case for the prosecution to prove. A lot of circumstantial evidence. Really, only 2 people in that courtroom knew for sure whether Katie Magbanua was involved. And that was Katie and Luis Rivera. Those were the only 2, and they both spoke. Only one should have spoken, but they both spoke. And so all that went into my personal journey to get to the verdict, which I felt was the right verdict, obviously.
Wow. By the way, Will just comes across so level-headed. You heard him say earlier he doesn't like to get too high, too low. I wish I could live like that, but every day is a high and a low. When you're the son of a psychiatrist, you grow up. My dad used to have stationery. I'll never forget this. This must be 1982. He had stationery on his desk. I have no idea if this medication exists, but it said Escalith for the highs and lows of manic depression. It used to be what we wrote our notes on at home. So that's what happens when you're the son of a psychiatrist. For Never Give Up, then I'm getting back to Tim. Will, were you as a juror aware that Dan's family members were in the courtroom? Did you know that they show them at the end of this video here? Did you know who they were?
Yeah, I didn't know what they looked like before, but I think you can just tell. You just knew who they, but not from any like recollection or so I don't know when I came to the realization that they were in the courtroom. But Tim made a point that I didn't look, anytime there were breaks or whatever, or a sidebar, I would stand up to stretch my legs and I would scan the courtroom, but I wouldn't look down at who was in the courtroom. And I didn't want to really make eye contact with anyone in the audience, just kind of looked at the walls and over everyone's heads. And, and I try to do that, every day, I didn't want any familiarity with anyone.
It had to be surreal, which is that's a great, a way to approach it. Also a great, I think, natural defense mechanism, but had to be surreal. As a guy who's practiced for 30 years at that point, I guess 27 years or so, to now be on the flip side of the courtroom. But Tim, you said something interesting. You said right around here where the verdict is read that this is where the lawyers realized they made a mistake with the plea deal. Expound on that, if you will.
Sure. Either she was not going to take a deal, or they convinced her they were going to get her not guilty. And if the latter is true, and if they believed they were going to get a not guilty, when that verdict came out, they let her down. They failed her as a lawyer because she had a immunity deal, a walk in the park to cooperate.
Yeah.
And she eventually did it, but it was way too late. And I'm sure Will feels better now, knowing that she later testifies that she was involved and that she was guilty, that their verdict was true. So, yeah.
I mean, Tim, how would you handle that? Knowing, I mean, it would be very difficult for me. I mean, I think I'm empathetic. You know, I feel for Katie. A lot of people say, why would you?
Yeah.
You know, good people do horrible things. Horrible people do good things. I don't know. I don't know what kind of person she is. Never interacted with her. But the weight of being an attorney and knowing, I mean, look, you could be out on the baseball field saying, wow, I'm playing baseball here with Will, but there's a woman locked up now because of a decision I made. I mean, how do you handle that as a criminal defense attorney?
Well, what we do in every case, if we tell the person to plead, we really think they need to plead, we will bring them in, have my investigator and another attorney. We will have them sign a document that it is our advice that based on the evidence and our investigation that you should consider and you should take this plea. It's your final decision, but it's our advice you should take a plea. So that way we can cover ourselves, let them know our feelings. And, I've told so many times people that want to go to trial and wait a minute, you're not going to win. And I make this example. I tell them all the time. If I told you were going to go buy a lottery ticket and the owner of the store, when you went to buy it, said, hey, listen, I'm going to tell you, I don't have any winners in this box. Would you still buy the ticket? And that has convinced a lot of people to change their mind. And I tell them, we don't have a winning ticket. There's no winning ticket here. And a lot of times it does convince them to take a plea.
By the way, first time we're ever hearing from Will here, a juror from the second Magbanua trial. If you appreciate the content, please hit the like button. If you love it or hate it, please subscribe. We've got a Patreon page. It ain't easy putting out content every single day. Some of the best content and on all the YouTubes and the audio platforms. So tell a friend. That's the best thing you can do. Tim, then back to Will. From Lisa Mona, not to be confused with Mona Lisa. Why do lawyers most always want the juror poll? I assume you want to know what is going on.
You always want to make sure it's basically perfunctory. They always do it when you lose. And I will tell you, one time, the juror said, no, that's not my verdict. And we all went in shock. And we didn't know what to do. And I believe the judge was Judge Wheeler. And
Really?
The judge said, take the jury to the room.
Whoa.
If the judge would have said anything else or let the jurors say anything else, we would have had a mistrial. And then the jury came back 20 minutes later guilty. So I felt the same way. And then I heard that. I'm like, oh, my gosh. But every once in a while.
That's a crazy story. So, Will, I asked you about the defense, but I've got to ask you, and I've got to think, and maybe I'm wrong, that you know Georgia. You know Sarah Catherine Dugan. Maybe not. You're indicating no, but okay, you don't know her. Tell us about your relationship or non-relationship, and what was it like to watch the prosecution team in action?
Whether he had a crush on either one of them afterward.
So
STS single.
That's why I drop him to 7th or 8th in the batting order, because he's a smartass.
He does.
So, I thought they made a good team, right? I thought Kappelman was methodical, kind of like setting the stage, real methodical, going through all the phone records, well prepared and all that. I thought Dugan, she was, I don't know whether this is appropriate or not, but she was like the pit bull, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say that complimentary.
Mm-hmm.
Her cross-examination of Magbanua, when like I said, I focused on body movements, everything verbal, whatever. When I saw, do you want me to talk about my thoughts about Magbanua's testifying?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Before you do that, let's watch one more clip. It's not for the audience. It's for me, so I don't get yelled at by the COE. Here we go. This is, I live in fear of my wife and my mother and my kids. The kid yelled at me tonight because I took him to soccer practice and I didn't let him stay long enough. All right, here we go.
As this TV probably cost $5,000. You agree with me that TV sounds like their code for this murder, right?
Objection, lack of personal knowledge.
Overruled if you know.
I don't know, ma'am.
Then Donna Adelson tells Charlie that it has to do with the two of them and the man mentioned an ex-girlfriend, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then Charlie calls you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Why did he call you?
I have no idea.
You don't know?
No, ma'am. I don't know if that's before or after or when he spoke to his mom or when they mentioned my name or when he said ex-girlfriend. Like, it's been going round and round. I'm confused myself.
Okay. And you said that in your last testimony, I'm looking at page 154, lines 4 through 9.
Which lines, ma'am?
154, lines 4 through 9.
Yes, I was saying that I'm his last ex-girlfriend.
That's what you said in 2019, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That you were his last ex-girlfriend.
Yes, to my knowledge, yes.
We've had testimony during this trial though, that he's had several girlfriends since you dated, though,
Yeah.
between that and the bump, right?
Yeah, but I was explaining here that I'm his last ex-girlfriend. Like he was dating June, I think, at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know about Whitney, so I was his last ex-girlfriend.
You didn't know about Whitney?
No, I heard about it now.
Wasn't that like his first serious girlfriend after you and him broke up?
I don't know. That's why I'm getting confused because I'm learning so many things from here.
A little tough to watch. I don't know if she's poorly coached by the defense. She's nervous up there. But Will, you've been saying all along that one of the biggest issues, or I guess maybe not motivators, but one of the reasons you found her guilty was her own words, her own testimony. How come?
Yeah. So, and that kind of ties in with what I thought of Dugan as an attorney. I think we had come back from a break and Kawas says, we have our next witness. I truly thought, they had already called 4 or 5 witnesses, whatever. I thought it was going to be Sawicki, and I thought I was going to go through one of those, oh my gosh, I'm not going to lock eyes with him or whatever. And I'm truly expecting Big John to come out and them to call, Sawicki, and they call Magbanua. And again, being an attorney, and I don't know how my fellow jury mates felt about this, and I don't recall if it was even discussed, but I realized this is a Hail Mary. They're calling their client. She better be well prepped. She better be smooth in the good way, not in a bad way. And when I saw on cross-examination, when it was time for the state to cross her, the way I saw Dugan get up from the table, Dugan, I don't know how you pronounce it.
Dugan.
And walk, I was like, oh my gosh, she is loaded for bear. This could get ugly if Magban was not coached properly. And
Prepared, not coached. We don't coach witnesses. We prepare them.
well, or Well, okay. See, I'm not a criminal defense attorney.
The same way, Will, the same way you prepare him on the baseball field.
If she's not prepared. And sure enough, it was probably even worse than I thought it was going to be. It was, one of the things that Judge Wheeler stated, like in the beginning instructions prior to the trial beginning, is that you're all called here and you all are going to bring your life experiences to this trial and to your deliberations. And there was a point where Dugan was asking Magbanua, what did you do for the money that you were paid from the dentist practice? What were some of the jobs that you did? And she couldn't answer. And there was a point there where it was so surreal. It was almost like Dugan was hoping that Magbanua could come up with something. She was almost like pleading with her like a friend, like, just tell me one thing you did for the money, one job. And Magbanua couldn't. I think at one point she said it was 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I immediately thought to 37 years prior, when between a summer job I had between like my sophomore and junior year in college, where I worked for the Palm Beach County Parks and Recreation Department. And I specifically remember a lot of the jobs I did that summer, from digging ditches for palm trees to go into at the sheriff's office, to directing traffic. I like 4 or 5 things. I'm like, she can't remember one thing she did for the money, and you have the prosecutor asking her over and over, just give me one thing. And it was just like that was devastating. That played a big part in how I got to find no reasonable doubt.
Yeah, and Tim, I mean, Will just said 2 words that caught my attention. I'm sure it caught yours. And with all due respect to the defense team, precisely, and with all due respect to Will, precisely why I wouldn't pick him to be on a jury, because he said he felt the defense was putting up a Hail Mary. Now, and with all due respect to plumbers or whoever else, anyone else in there might not notice sort of the subtleties in a trial, and might not think that. But here you've got an attorney who's trained as a lawyer, and he knows there's something up when you're calling the defendant to testify in this particular case. Again, was it a misstep to call her?
Well, it was a misstep to call her, but I think as we talk with Will, the defense picked a good juror in Will. He wasn't automatically and already decided that she was guilty. He was open-minded, and he was waiting for some answers. And then when he saw the answers were not there, it solidified his opinion she wasn't telling the truth. And you can convict someone based on them not being truthful. And she probably shouldn't have testified. They might have been able to argue more reasonable doubt. And there are cases where you have to testify, and that is a date rape, sexual battery, molestation. And there are cases you don't have to testify, make them prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And she washed it all away by her poor testimony.
Fascinating. This is, again, you're getting real insight from a real juror on Katie Magbanua's second trial, which did not go her way. As a result, convicted and spending life behind bars. Tim, is there a chance, that maybe the justice train is not done yet? Is there a chance that somehow Katie Magbanua's sentence gets mitigated in some way, or is that next to no hope of happening?
I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance with their cooperation in her last 2 trials.
Okay, we'll leave it there. So there's one final bite or piece of sound. This involves the woman that a lot of people are talking about right now, none other than Dan Markel's ex-wife, Wendy Adelson.
And did you leave your residence at all that day after you got the TV, or the TV man came?
After the TV repairman came, I did a little bit more work from home. I talked to a couple of friends, and then I made plans to have lunch with 2 friends that I frequently saw on Fridays. And we made kind of a last minute plan to have lunch. And then I had a few errands to run before I met them. So I did that. I picked up gas. I picked up something I needed for a party that night. And then I went to meet my friends for lunch.
All right. And do you know what time you left the residence that day?
I don't. I guess it's somewhere around noon.
I'm going to stop you here for 1 sec just to point something out. So first trial with Katie, Charlie's a free man. He is an unindicted co-conspirator. Here, he's been under arrest for about 3 months. So, Will, I assume you knew none of this, right? Did you know this, that Charlie was incarcerated at this point?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I knew that. Yeah, I didn't follow the trials. You know, I didn't watch anything on court TV. I didn't really read any articles. I didn't go to any blogs. So I didn't really follow it. I didn't watch Dateline. But yeah, I knew he was incarcerated, and I knew, yeah.
And this portion of her testimony, she seems very kind of nonchalant. I'm just curious, rewatching this now, probably for the first time in 3 years, your take on her so far.
I think I made a comment, and maybe to Tim at one point, that I prefer Keira Knightley as an actress. I mean, that's
in other words, you think she's putting on a performance?
Not a good one, but just my opinion. And yeah,
Tim once famously said, and I quote him all the time, that why is she wearing the same dress to multiple trials? Tim says an actress always wears the same costume. So, you know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Let's keep watching here. Will, the question is going to come your way. Do you think she'll be indicted next? But let's watch this first.
And then went and ran your errands. On the way to run your errands, did you go by the crime scene?
No.
On the way to run your errands, did you encounter a roadblock on Trescott?
I did.
All right, so you did turn off of Centerville onto Trescott.
I did.
All right, and when you encountered a roadblock, what did you assume the problem was there?
I figured it was just an electrical storm or something. There was some tape, and it looked like the road was blocked off. And so I just turned around and went back and went up Benton.
And had there been an electrical storm that morning?
I didn't remember an electrical storm, but in the summertime, there's always trees falling and rainstorms, so pretty normal.
Right, and you weren't concerned based on that experience that there could be something going on at previously your marital home?
Absolutely not.
And your ex-husband, Dan Markel, had your children at that time, right?
No, he did not.
Okay, so you had your children at that time?
No, my children were at preschool at that time.
Right, but who took them to preschool that day?
Danny would have taken them to preschool.
Okay. So it was his day. He was killed on his parenting day.
It was the day he would have brought them to preschool, and I would have picked them up.
All right. Did they spend the night with him the night before?
They did.
And you hadn't seen your children yet that day when you encountered the roadblock?
On Friday, no.
That's the soundbite. I was just reading this. Look at this. Joel's man crush on Tim is unrelenting. Look at that. Yeah, I aspire to be a fashionable, dapper criminal defense attorney. Lives in a palatial estate. Why not? I do have a man crush on Tim. Where do I go from there? So, you know, Will, this is a running joke with Tim and I. I probably get asked 100 times a day, what's going on with Wendy? Is Wendy next? I don't know. I'm not inside baseball. I have no idea. But I did speak to 3 of the jurors from Donna's trial. All 3 of them said quite openly that they would indict Wendy right now, just knowing, we're just learning. And granted, there's more information that came out during Donna's trial. I'm just curious, number one, you know, a little more in terms of your thoughts on the testimony, which obviously you feel she was, acting to a degree, but what about her involvement here? Do you have a thought on that and whether or not she'll be indicted?
I've got to look at the facts, right? And what are the facts? At the Magbanua trial, there was, her driving by, turning around. That was odd. The home that her kids were living in, and she doesn't stop. There's police cars and whatever. The whole Jeff Lacoste thing, and when that testimony occurred, it was real strange in terms of my thought process. I started thinking, wait, this thing is more malevolent and deeper than, just Charlie hiring, being maybe the ringleader and hiring someone. This may go way deeper if Lacoste's testimony and kind of the implication that he was going to be set up to take the fall, But, I don't think state attorneys are in the business of indicting just to indict. And I say that, and I don't mean to downplay her involvement or her knowledge or whatever, but they've got to have evidence. They can't just, and Tim could probably speak to this better than me, they've got to have evidence, and they've got to have real evidence, tangible evidence. They can't just indict just for leverage. At least a good state attorney, I would say, he or she has to have some evidence, some real evidence that implicates the individual. And if they don't have it, can they get it? There's 3 people sitting in jail. There's 2 recently sitting in jail that may be able to unlock some of that evidence. But I don't know. With what I've seen, I don't know if they have enough evidence just based on what I saw in the Magbanua trial, and Wendy wasn't on trial, Katie Magbanua was. I don't know if there's enough from what I saw to be able to indict her.
Yeah, and again, there was more evidence that came out. But Tim, one of the comments that keeps coming into the chat here, I've noticed, is Katie knows more than she's given up so far. Is there a chance that behind closed doors that the prosecution is leaning on Katie, possibly saying, hey, we know you know more, give it up, and you'll get out of here in 15 more years or 20 more years?
Well, let's ask Will. Will, we have a trial now, and we're the state, and we're going to call Katie Magbanua as one of our key witnesses. What do you think about that after you saw her testimony in her trial?
I would think a defense attorney, maybe as polished and as good as Tim Jansen, would probably shred her on cross.
But as a juror, what would you think? Knowing she lied and perjured herself in her own trial.
Okay, you bring up an interesting question, and we touched a little bit on Luis Rivera. So the one thing I learned as a juror sitting in a trial like this, which I may not have realized if I hadn't, was there could be a witness testifying that a lot of his testimony you think is he may have a motive to lie, he may have cut a deal to lie, this and that, and you know that, but there's points in the testimony where you look at it and say, holy geez, he's telling the truth right there. And I saw that in Rivera. There was a point in time when he got frustrated and he kind of bowed up out of his seat while all shackled. And he said, Katie, you know we're involved. You know we did it. You know we both did it. And in that moment, I was like, I believe this guy. Right. I believe that part of him. The little drawing that he made, and I still don't know why the state brought in a little drawing with a gun and a bridge and a lake, which to me, to this day, 3.5 years later, I was like, why was that even introduced? That was the silliest thing in a case that was very well tried, but maybe I missed something. So Tim, to answer your question, I can only judge it when it happens. If I'm ever on that jury, which I won't be, I could only judge it if it happened. But there could be a point where if a juror is looking at it the way I looked at things, you say, man, she's so full of this on so much, but I believe her, right? I do believe her. I believe what she's saying right there.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
weird.
Tim, it's so fascinating because everyone who sort of speaks about Luis Rivera will frequently say he's the most credible. He is the Latin Kings gang member, you know, not to stereotype, tatted head to toe. By the way, the craziest statistic about Luis Rivera, which I was reminded of this past week, he's 43 years old and he has a 32-year-old daughter, just to put things in perspective.
So I think Lewis was one of the more credible.
Will's trying to figure out that's 11 years old. Look, he had a very difficult upbringing on the rough streets of Miami Beach, where there are some rough streets. But, and I'm not defending the guy in any way. And look, he's been very open about, you know, confessing to the crime and kind of owning up to it. But Tim, isn't it interesting that he is possibly the most credible witness, or at least among them?
He was the most credible because you look at him and he was thinking, we're going to kill this guy. And Lewis, knowing from the streets, why kill the guy? Why don't we just rob the lady? That's easier. And you can see that's exactly what he would do. Why would they kill this professor they don't know in Tallahassee? Why wouldn't they just rob the lady in Miami? That's what they would do. It defied common sense.
Yeah. Question here for Tim from Montgomery Angel. Tim, this is a very interesting question. Does the quality of the defense attorney factor into the DA's decision to indict Wendy? Her lawyer is a heavy hitter. John Lauro. He represents the president of the United States, or did. That's a great question. Is that something that is discussed behind closed doors?
Oh, absolutely. They understand who the lawyer representing him, what kind of case they're going to have. Is it going to be worth the resources to try a case with a heavy hitter with unlimited resources on a case you may not be able to win? A smart lawyer. I had a case one time where a guy was charged with sexual battery, and I had just tried a case against the prosecutor, and the prosecutor actually dropped the case because he said, I just got my butt kicked in, and the evidence in this case is less than what I had in the last case. So they dropped the charges. I think they do consider it. I don't think they will ever admit considering it, because there are lawyers that try cases and there are lawyers that take plea deals. Prosecutors know the lawyers that never go to trial. They don't get the great deals. They're just trying to get in there and get a plea deal. On the other hand, they got lawyers that will try cases and can beat them. They're usually going to get a better plea deal because the prosecution knows they could lose. So they'd rather get something for the victim than nothing. So they do consider that in plea deals and negotiations.
Although I would put Georgia and Sarah, Sarah's going for her judgeship, but I would put her up against pretty much anyone. By the way, Tim, I did get a tweet today. Let me just pull it up real quick because it was directed at you. And this is from Mikey Q in Delray Beach. I believe the deadline for Sarah Catherine Dugan is the end of this week to find out whether or not she's going to become a judge appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis. Could you ask Tim if there are any updates on that? That seemed to be a potential delay in a Wendy indictment. Tim, you know anything about that? And is it a potential delay in a Wendy indictment?
That would not be a delay. That would be a factor for the state attorney. I believe that deadline is correct. There are several people that are, and Sarah Catherine's one that is up for a judgeship, for two different judgeships, a circuit judgeship and a county judgeship. And I talked to her about it last week.
The most hated person in the chat for once is not me. Nicole R. They're not going to indict Wendy. Unfortunately, send your hate mail to Nicole R. at hatemail.com. Usually it goes directly to me. Right here, Luis was credible, but it seemed like his memory was fading in Donna's trial. If I had a child at 11 years old, I would probably no longer be around by my own choosing, because that is a lot to deal with. But the guy, he's in prison. So Will, a couple more things I just got to ask you about. One of the holdups from 2019, from Katie's first trial to 2022, was enhancing this Dolce Vita tape. How important was that Dolce Vita recording to you in your decision making?
Yeah, that was important. It was one of the pieces that ultimately sealed the deal for me. You know, it was difficult to hear, right? And there's all that background noise and all that. So there was a point in time, I don't know if Tim remembers this, I don't know if he was in the courtroom, there was a point in time during our deliberations where we wanted to hear it again. We had it back with us, I believe, but we wanted to hear it with the headphones again. And so, you know, when you're deliberating, you're alone. It's just you as the jury. And you can send notes to the judge, and then, you know, I guess the judge writes back or whatever. And one of the notes we sent is we want to hear the tape again, but with the headphones on, because it's kind of hard to hear. So the bailiff comes in and she goes, okay, we're going to go out and you're going to listen, you know, like you requested to hear the tape again. And I mean, I would have thought, and I did think commonsensically, that we were going to go in the courtroom. There's going to be no one there except like the bailiff, right? Because it's part of deliberations. And we go out there and the stands are packed. And so now you're like deliberating. Technically, I think we're still deliberating with like 100 people there. And that was somewhat unnerving, right? So I think we were out there probably for a half an hour, 20 minutes, 25. I don't remember exactly. And then we went back in, and there was a point in there, and I still remember the minute and the second mark. I'm pretty sure it was at the 24-minute, 12-second mark where they talked about the money drop. Mm-hmm. I believe Charlie said, did you drop the money or something like that? And we played it again in the jury room. And I put my ear right up to the speaker of the screen or whatever to make sure I heard it and heard it correctly. And sure enough, I heard money drop. That was key for me. It was an important piece for me, for sure.
Finally, I mean, you just discussed or mentioned deliberations. Just take us in there. So you sit through basically a 2-week trial. To put it in perspective, Will's jury that he sat on deliberated for somewhere between 7 and 8 hours. Both Donna and Charlie were around the 3-hour mark, give or take a few minutes. I think Donna was 3 hours and 18 minutes. Charlie was maybe a hair under 3. Just walk us into that deliberations room, Will. How did you guys choose the 4-person? What were you guys talking about? What was the atmosphere like in there?
So we we initially started going through all the testimony and then realized we just need to hone in. A big piece of the evidence were the cell tower records and the pinging and the locations, and the prosecution did a great job with that. Corbinson was that his name? Sorry,
Chris Corbett.
Chris Corbett. He was excellent. There's no doubt. This was the guy who, when he testified and he looked at the jury, he was so at ease, so confident, distilled. I'm not good with technology, as you know, Joel, with the issues I was having earlier today. And it was a very simple fix. I'm a little embarrassed by that. But Corbett was able to really simplify all of that cell tower forensic analysis and all that. And we did without betraying any confidences of my jury mates, we focused on that. That was a big part of our focus in the deliberations, and Corbett's his ability to explain what it all meant. And I'll tell you, these folks, like I said, I've done a lot in my life, professionally, personally, socially, whatever. This group of jurors I will hold them and raise them as some of the best, highest character people I've ever been around. There was really no strong arming. There were some of us, and I was one of them, who took longer to get and to take our personal journey to find him beyond a reasonable doubt, guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. There were a few of us, but there was no strong arming. You know, when there were difficult questions, when things were brought up in terms of maybe why someone was not there yet, we did what we should have done. We went to the jury instructions that the judge gave us, and we went point by point, step by step, word by word. And ultimately, when you fuse and intersect the jury instructions with the evidence and each individual's memory of what they just saw and what they just witnessed and everything, the notes and everything, all of us took that journey to a unanimous verdict, which was the right verdict, and which I've had no qualms about that. You know, it was the right verdict the minute I decided, yes, I'm a yes on this. And it's the right verdict 3.5 years later. And Tim mentioned that. I didn't know that Magbanua had, I knew before this, but I hadn't really known from the Charlie trial that she had basically confessed to everything, you know. So, yeah.
Carol Lucy here. Does the Markel family want Wendy indicted? Does anyone know? I'm not going to speak for them other than to say that they do not feel full justice has yet been served. So read into that as you may. Huge thanks to R, the letter, and OUR, Timothy Jansen, the famed Tallahassee criminal defense attorney, because without him, Will would not be here. Tim knows pretty much everyone in Tallahassee, including Will. As you heard, they played baseball together. Tim, what did you? First of all, thank you, Tim. And
I sent you pictures. I sent you baseball pictures.
Oh, those are going right up. Follow me on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor. I'll tag Tim on Twitter at Podcast STS. We also have a Facebook page. It'll go up there, Surviving the Survivor. Please check us out there. We'll get the photos up, and we might just be able to do it now. Look at that. Let's say Hawks. I'm losing my eyesight.
That's the Hawks.
Yeah, that's a nice field. Florida doesn't mess around. When you grow up in New Jersey, I basically grew up playing on concrete, like dirty, disgusting field. Look at that field. It's like a major league field. It's like a minor league field right there.
Yeah. Tim picked our worst jersey. I've designed so much better jerseys than that, and he picks that.
There's a couple other pictures that were better, but
yeah, it looks kind of like Oakland A's-ish. Look at Tim, man. How is Tim a good hitter, Will?
Tim a good hitter?
Yeah.
Yeah, good line drive hitter. Yeah. Interesting batting stance. His feet are about, I don't know how he. Yeah, it's a unique batting stance, but he's aggressive. He doesn't like to walk, and he doesn't like to bunt.
Dude, he looks like a manager there.
Number Tim, 4 hitter doesn't sacrifice.
Tim, who's the guy to your left?
That's a PI lawyer, personal injury lawyer, Hal Lewis, Fonville Lewis, and Messer.
Dude, he's a good-looking dude. He looks like an active player. I like that you're wearing sleeveless Under Armour shirts just to show off.
I designed those.
Oh, those are cool.
And the next picture, you'll recognize the guy we played in a tournament with.
Let's see if the COE has it.
If she can put it. It's a funny story.
COE, if you have that other. But Tim, meanwhile, while we wait for the third picture, look at Tim, man. This guy's got Hollywood good looks here. As does this guy. This guy's a good-looking dude.
He is.
And ladies, I can see from here, he's wearing a wedding band. So settle down.
He's been married 3 times.
Oh, geez. That's a whole other. What's his name again? I'm going to get him on the show.
So the next one was a picture with Doug Flutie. So we played with Doug Flutie in a tournament.
How's Flutie? He's got to be great.
He's a good player. And we had a pitcher, and he hit Doug. He hit Doug's brother, and then in the mid, and I think he hit his dad. And then during a break, Doug walked up to the pitcher and said, "Hey, my sister's coming to watch. Are you going to hit her too?" It was hysterical.
There's not a lot of people in the stands, but other than that, the
This was
wives.
a tournament in Fort
Not
Myers.
for us.
Yeah.
Not for us.
Did the wives used to come out for your games, like your home games? When people show up?
Yes.
Huh. I'm like amazed at how serious this is. Tim Jansen, while the COE needs you to send that third photo again, she's asking. But let me ask you, while you simultaneously do that, let me ask you, is there something that you took away from this interview with your friend Will that stands out?
It showed me again how serious Will took it, and why I think the defense did a good job putting him on that jury, because they got a clear, fair evaluation of the evidence.
Look at this. Tim looks like Jeff Bridges in the photo. Never give up here. I love Doug Flutie. Look, we're the only show that can talk Tallahassee adult men's league baseball while also discussing Katie Magbanua. If you don't think that is a skill, you're crazy. Will, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correct. Is it Silius?
Spilius.
Spilius. I forgot the P. I don't have it written down right in front of me.
I am
Will,
silly at times, but
yeah, Will Spilius, man. It was a pleasure to meet you. Love to get you back on when we do jury stories. Thank you for your service. Thank you for coming on. And your final thoughts here, just the whole experience and what you think might be next, if anything, for this case.
Right. Well, we hit on it earlier. Tim had been talking to me off and on about joining the show and said it's an interesting show that, I've got a story that people might find interesting. Again, how I got on the jury and just kind of the quirkiness regarding that. I guess I'm a quirky person, quirky story on getting on a jury. But, once it happened, it was an experience that in many ways changed my life, changed kind of how I view life in a way, not like some over dramatic thing, but, just appreciating, I guess, the simple things, right? And appreciating freedom, it wasn't an easy experience, Again, it was an evil crime. It's mind-boggling that it even happened. It's mind-boggling that people would go to this crazy extent, for a custody issue, and everyone that was involved in it. It just brings back the why did this even happen? Like, what, it's evil and it's dumb. I mean, but what's crazy is they would have gotten away with it, but for the neighbor noticing, hey, there was like a white car, and if he hadn't noticed that, I don't think you have a crime solved. I don't think you have arrests. So by the grace of God, he was able to, he saw the car pull out, and then they got the bus videos and everything. And then one thing led to another over the course of years. And so kind of like reliving it right now, some of this stuff is seared in my mind, and the details are seared in my mind. And, but like I said, the experience is something I wouldn't trade for anything. And the jury crew, I'll never forget them, and I'll never forget what we went through together. Yeah. So
do you keep in touch with any of them? Any of the jurors?
There's one that's a huge baseball fan, and he kills me every summer because he goes to a lot of ballparks, sends me pictures at different ballparks. There's another one who I'm friends with. a great guy, great man. He was the jury foreman, and yeah, I'll treasure that relationship, for the rest of my life.
Hey, Will, remember the juror I met in Home Goods, and we took a picture and sent it to you?
Say what?
That one female juror that I took a picture in Home Goods and I sent it to you.
Oh yeah. Great person. She was great to be on the jury.
She came up to me in Home Goods, Will, and she goes, "I was juror number 4." And she goes, "Can I take a picture with you?" I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. By the way, Will, you said there was a story behind you being juror number 11. What's the significance of 11?
Oh man, you remember
the number?
Is that your jersey number or something?
It's just one of those really weird things that have. All through my men's baseball career, I was number 21. I'm a big Roberto Clemente guy. I'm from Pittsburgh, and that year, that spring of leading up to the whole jury service thing, before I even knew I was going to be on a jury, I left the team, that team that you see right there, that Tim, I designed that jersey too. I left that team after managing it for 7 years, and I went to another team called the Bravos, kind of a Bad News Bears type team, and so I was not going to take number 21 with me, right? I was going to say, okay, I've left that in the past. That was the Hawks. I need a new number. So I said, oh, maybe I'll do number 11. That was my number in high school, right? I was like, well, no, that's in the past. Number 11 is in the past. Number 11 has nothing to do with me anymore. I'm going to go 31, right? So that's my number. And then a week later, 5 days later, 3 days later, I get called on the jury, and I go to sit down, and I'm juror 11. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just weird. I put number 11 away. I said to myself, no more number 11. And now I'm juror 11. How weird is that? Just a little personal thing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Someone asked if your father is Spilius, the attorney in West Palm Beach. Are you able to divulge that?
So even now on this podcast, I'm asked if I'm related to, that's my older brother, one of the giants, if not the biggest giant in my life. That's my older brother. Yeah.
What kind of attorney?
What's that?
What kind of law does he practice?
Oh, he's done a lot. He's been in private practice. He's done governmental work. He also worked at the Attorney General's office years ago. He's a bit older than me. He's got 16 years on me, but he actually may be in better shape than me right now.
That's amazing. If you're in trouble in West Palm, what's his name? What's his first name?
Ken.
Call Ken Spilius. By the way, I know you're going to find this. I'm a weird, quirky dude. I have like a weird obsession with Kent DeCulvey. No one else knows who I'm talking about right now except for Will. And I'm sadly old enough to. I just loved his pitching style, man. He was crazy, and then of course Willie Stargell, man.
Pops.
That's when that's in my opinion, that's when baseball was baseball back in those days.
Yeah.
Long live Thurman Munson. Will, absolute pleasure. I'm from Jersey, so I'm a Yankees fan. Sorry. And now I know why all the jerseys are yellow. One final quick, I just don't understand this. So does Doug play baseball? Now everyone's gone. There's going to be 3 people left. But for who does he play for?
He played for a team with there's a big tournament in Fort Myers. And we play on the pro baseball fields down there. And he was playing a team. We got into the semifinals against his team, and we ended up losing like 6-4. But he played second base. He batted first, had the perfect bunt, and ran it out.
I mean, this dude has literally not aged since Boston College, and I think he graduated in like the late 80s, right?
Yeah, he graduated Boston College like 84 or something.
Yeah, or a long time.
He's a year, I think, younger than me.
Tim Jansen, how does he? What's he like in person? Is he a good dude?
Real nice guy. That was in the batting dugout or the batter's cage, and he came over and I introduced myself and we were going to play and he took a picture. He was real nice.
Wow.
So interesting story about this picture is This was a tournament team. This may have been Orlando, Tim.
No, this is Fort Myers.
Okay.
Was it Orlando, maybe?
It may have been. This is a team that we recruited Pat Sanford.
He did.
To play on our team. And so I had to massage the ego and the tensions between Pat and Tim. Again, remember, because Pat always hits Tim, but if he's on the same team, he can't really hit him.
That's when Pat, I had this stuff on a sore thing, and then Pat had to come up to me and ask me if he could borrow some because he was pitching, and he put it on his shoulder so he could pitch, and we kind of broke bread in the dugout.
Tim, do you still play in this league?
No, I either had to have surgery or retire my labrum on my right because I played third base, and then they said, "Hey, man, we need you to play outfield because you can run and you can see, and you got a good arm." So I had to go to left field, and then I just threw my arm out. So I quit at 59.
I had lunch today, by the way, with a good friend of mine. He used to work at CBS here in Miami when I worked here the first time in the early 2000s. You can Google him. His name is Sean, last initial K. He was on the first ever season of Survivor, and he made it to the semifinals. He had, this is public knowledge, dual nipple rings because he spent half the show naked, and he made it to the semis. He's now married happily with a family of 5. But we were talking about how in our mid-50s, we still act and think like we're 21, although neither of us are. And it never ends for men. We always think that we are still capable. But at some point, you got to hang up the cleats. Tim played third base for years, varsity. Haddon Township. I played against Haddon Township, and we got our asses kicked. I don't want to tout myself here. This was all about Tim and Will, but I will say I was a 3-time state champion in high school tennis. Probably the worst good tennis player ever to do it. Will, absolute pleasure. Will you come back at some point?
Sure. Had a good time. It was interesting.
All right.
Thanks, Will.
Yeah, Will says he's quirky. So's our show. Tim Jansen, you're the man. We're back tomorrow at 12:30. I think we're going to talk this Ashley Buzzard and what is going on. The psychologist the other night had some really interesting things. Melody Buzzard has not been seen, I think, since October 9th. Her mother drove her maybe to Nebraska and back, last seen on video at the Utah-Colorado border. And this mother, Ashley Buzzard, the daughter's Melody, the mother's having some sort of mental health episode, and Carm knows everything. Everything. Carm literally... everything Carm knows, and she will be here tomorrow to discuss it. Guests, stick around 1 second. Thank you for indulging us in our baseball conversation. Carm will discuss her favorite baseball team tomorrow, and now I know why whatever the name of the team is in yellow for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Stick around 1 second.